What do biting, brawls, and 4 Stanley Cup wins have in common? Meet Claude Lemieux.
Hey, it's Garrett here, feeling curious today.
And I'm Leah, excited to dive into today's topic. Welcome to Laid Back Learning with Leah and Garrett.
All right, let's set the stage for this one. Lemieux, the enigmatic hockey agitator.
Let's open the book on this with a quick memory. I grew up in a house where hockey was kind of a weekly ritual, and I remember watching what people now call Fight Night at the Joe. That was the 1997 brawl between the Detroit Red Wings and the Colorado Avalanche at Joe Louis Arena in Detroit. I was a kid, squeezed between cousins on the couch, and the whole room went silent when the first punches flew. Then it was chaos on the ice and like a hushed play-by-play in our living room. It wasn't just a fight. It felt like a story cracking open in real time. That moment didn't make me love violence, but it did hook me on how rivalries can grip a city, a family room, a whole league. Real talk. It made me fascinated with how sports controversies pull people in because they're emotional, personal, and bigger than the scoreboard.
Here's a thought I've been turning over. Claude Lemieux was a Canadian right wing, a forward, known for elevating in the playoffs and for playing right on the edge. When people say agitator or enforcer in hockey, they mean a player who stirs opponents up and delivers heavy physical play, sometimes crossing lines. An agitator pokes and prods. An enforcer backs it with hits and back then, sometimes fights. Claude did both, and he scored in big moments. Imagine a teammate who can finish at the net in the last 5 minutes and also get inside the other team's head. That's pretty much the blueprint.
And his playoff record backs that up. He won 4 Stanley Cups, which is the NHL's championship, and he grabbed the Conn Smythe Trophy in 1995, which is the playoff MVP award. He scored 80 postseason goals, 9th most in NHL history, and appeared in 234 playoff games, which puts him 4th all-time. That's elite company. Numbers like that say he wasn't just loud or edgy, he was effective when it mattered most.
He also had that power forward profile. 6'1", about 215 pounds, straight line heavy skating, the kind of frame that helps win board battles and camp out in front of the goalie. If you picture traffic in rush hour, he was the truck that sets the tone in the lane, and he had the hands to finish plays too.
That's the heartbeat of why he mattered. But let's unpack how he got there, because the early years set up the whole story. Picture this, Quebec kid Claude Percy Lemieux, born in Buckingham and raised in Mont-Laurier. He jumps into elite youth hockey and immediately shows that mix of scoring and edge. With the Richelieu Éclaireurs in top-tier Quebec youth hockey, he piled up goals and assists, but also a lot of penalty minutes, which is time served for infractions. It's an early sign of a player who can, hurt you on the scoreboard and wear you down physically.
Then he moves to Major Junior with the Trois-Rivières Dravers in the QMJHL, which is the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, one of Canada's big junior circuits. He puts up offense and a massive 187 penalty minutes. PIM, by the way, is just shorthand for penalty minutes. That agitation identity was already dialed in. Montreal drafts him in the second round in 1983, and that's like getting beamed into Hockey University. The Canadiens were a historic franchise with big expectations.
In 1983-84, he dominates for the Verdun Juniors in that same QMJHL ecosystem. He scores like crazy and continues to rack up PIMs. He gets a quick taste of the NHL with Montreal and even touches the Memorial Cup, which is the Canadian Junior Championship tournament. Early on, he's learning to perform in pressure cookers.
By 1984-85, he's obliterating junior numbers, and then he steps onto the world stage at the 1985 World Junior Championships in Helsinki. That's the under-20 tournament for top national teams. He scores for Canada, they win gold, and he gets that early taste of winning big. It's like a preview of the clutch gene.
Next season, he splits time in the AHL, which is the NHL's top minor league, with the Sherbrooke Canadiens, and gets into 10 NHL games. Then the 1986 playoffs hit, and boom, as a rookie, he scores 10 goals and 16 points in 20 games as Montreal wins the Stanley Cup. That's a statement season. Not gonna lie, it's huge.
But controversy tags along early. During the 1986 final against Calgary, he bit Jim Peplinski's finger in a scrum. Peplinski was a Flames forward, tough veteran guy. That bite becomes an infamous footnote. It shows how Lemieux could tilt into tactics that infuriated opponents while his team marched toward a cup.
Through the rest of the 80s in Montreal, his offense grows. He hits 31 goals in 1987-88, and he makes Team Canada for the Canada Cup, which was the pre-World Cup tournament for best-on-best international hockey. He's scoring, he's irritating opponents, he's winning. The package is coming together.
By 1989-90, the fit shifts, and Montreal moves him to the New Jersey Devils in September 1990 for Sylvain Turgeon, a scoring winger. New Jersey under coaches like Jacques Lemaire leaned defensive and structure-heavy. That is a perfect lab for his playoff brand: tight games, low scoring, where one greasy goal can swing a series. His New Jersey rise is serious. He pops 30 goals in 1990-91, a career-high 41 in 1991-92, and then 81 points in 1992-93, showing playmaking too. When the Devils make a push in 1993-94, he delivers 18 playoff points. It's that steady drumbeat: win puck battles, drive the net, get under the skin, show up late in May.
Then the lockout-shortened 1994-95 season. He only has 6 goals in the regular season, but in the playoffs he explodes for 13 goals in 20 games. New Jersey wins the Stanley Cup, and he takes home the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP. They sweep the Detroit Red Wings in the final. That cemented his identity as the guy who hits the turbo button in spring.
Shortly after, he's traded to the Colorado Avalanche, who had just moved from Quebec to Denver. In 1995-96 with Colorado, he scores 39 goals, then helps them to another cup. Back-to-back championships with different teams. Only a small club of players have pulled that off. That's rare air.
And here's where the fuse gets lit. In the 1996 Western Conference Final, he hits Chris Draper from behind. Draper was a Detroit center known for speed and checking. Draper suffers a concussion and multiple facial fractures. The NHL hands Lemieux a 2-game suspension. Detroit's Dino Ciccarelli, a high-scoring winger, famously says, "I can't believe I shook this guy's friggin' hand after the game." The Avalanche-Red Wings rivalry goes nuclear.
It hits a crescendo on March 26, 1997. Fight night at the Joe. Darren McCarty, Detroit's tough forward, jumps Lemieux after a scuffle between Peter Forsberg, Colorado's superstar, and Igor Larionov, Detroit's cerebral playmaker. Multiple fights break out, including the goalies. It's one of those cultural sports moments that becomes shorthand for an era.
And the odd part is, he stays on brand. In 1996-97, he scores more playoff goals than regular season goals, 13 versus 11. That's the Lemieux signature, right? Regular season modest, postseason, the volume goes up to 11.
He remains productive through 1997-98 and 1998-99 with Colorado. Then in late 1999, he's traded back to New Jersey. In 1999-2000, he helps the Devils win another Stanley Cup. Now he's got 4 rings, and he's one of the rare players to win with 3 different franchises: Montreal, New Jersey, and Colorado.
Let me ask you why this rivalry stuff grabs people so hard. Because to me, it wasn't just fights, it was the feeling that these teams symbolized something bigger. Pride, revenge, respect. Why does that land so deeply, do you think?
I think it's narrative gravity. Sports are already stories in motion, and rivalries give them heroes, villains, and cliffhangers. Lemieux became a character who moved the plot. For fans, it's not just goals, it's identity and memory, city versus city, what you talk about at dinner. That's something to chew on, huh? After that 2000 Cup, he signs with the Phoenix Coyotes in the offseason. He has a decent 2001 despite injuries. In 2001-02, he plays all 82 games, but the playoff production doesn't pop. Midway through 2002-03, he's traded to the Dallas for a push. He finishes out and then steps away from the NHL ice after that season.
He isn't done with hockey, though. He has a brief run in Switzerland with EV Zug. Then, in 2005, he becomes president of the Phoenix Roadrunners, an ECHL team, which is like a developmental minor league. He's running business ops and community stuff, getting a taste of front office life.
And then the curveball. In 2008-09, he stages a comeback, starts with the China Sharks in Asia League Ice Hockey, which is a pro league in East Asia, signs with the AHL Worcester Sharks, the San Jose affiliate. He clears NHL waivers, which is the process teams use to let other clubs claim a player before sending him down, and then nails a two-way contract, meaning different salaries for NHL and AHL. San Jose recalls him. He gets an NHL assist in February 2009, and that Sharks team wins the President's Trophy, which is best regular season record. For a late career cameo, that's pretty cool, right?
Post-playing, he becomes a sports agent and ends up president of 4Sports Hockey. His client list gets legit. Timo Meier, a power winger known for scoring, Moritz Seider, a top young defenseman from Germany, Rickard Rakell, a skilled Swedish forward, and Hampus Lindholm, a smooth Swedish defenseman. He settles in Huntington Beach, California, becomes a U.S. citizen in 2009, and keeps strong ties to Canadian hockey. Also, family note, his brother Jocelyn played in the NHL, and his son Brendan made the league too. They're the only father-son duo both penalized by the NHL for biting incidents, which is like a jaw-dropping bit of trivia.
One more twist of perspective. Darren McCarty, the Detroit forward who fought him in that 1997 melee, and Lemieux later appeared together at charity events. That says something about how time and purpose can cool even the fiercest fires.
In May 2026, he carried the torch for the Montreal Canadiens before an Eastern Conference final game. 3 days later, he died by suicide at age 60 at a property he owned in Lake Park, Florida. It's hard to hold triumph and tragedy in the same hand, but that's part of this story too. His impact on the ice and his work off it left a mark across generations of players and fans.
Legacy snapshot. 4 cups, Conn Smythe. 9th all-time in playoff goals, 4th in playoff games, and 15 straight postseasons from 1986 to 2000. Also one of the most hated players, depending on who you ask. He was a paradox, but a productive one when the lights were brightest.
And physically, he fit the role. 6'1", 215, heavy on the boards, screens in front, finishes in tight. Add the psychological game, and you get a player who redefined how pressure can be applied, both with the stick and with the mind. Okay, let's move on to one big open question that still stirs debate. The 2-game suspension for that 1996 hit on Chris Draper. Given Draper's injuries, was that enough?
Here's my angle. In that era, NHL discipline had a different baseline. The league has evolved a lot since then on head hits and hits from behind. 2 games looks light now, but at the time it reflected the standards they were using. If you judge it by the rulebook culture of the day, it's more consistent than it seems from a 2020s perspective.
I hear you, but I keep thinking about deterrence. If the league had gone with a heavier suspension, would that have cooled the rivalry before it exploded? Like, would a harsher precedent have told everyone this line is not to be crossed?
Maybe, but I'm not totally sold. The rivalry had so many ingredients already. 2 stacked contenders, clashing styles, repeated playoff meetings, memories of getting swept in 1995. Even with a longer suspension, the fuse might have still burned. Sometimes the competitive cycle guarantees friction.
Why not consider the player safety angle as the deciding factor, though? If a hit causes a concussion and multiple facial fractures, a big suspension could center the conversation on protecting players first, entertainment second. Player safety feels like, the non-negotiable part.
Totally fair. I think the modern NHL agrees with that logic more than the 90s NHL did. Today we see larger bans for dangerous hits. Back then, accountability was more game to game. And not gonna lie, sometimes even self-policed by teams. It wasn't better, just different.
So maybe the most honest answer is that discipline standards shift with time. If you replay 1996 with today's rulebook and culture, Lemieux probably sits a lot longer. And that might change the path of the rivalry, even if it doesn't erase it entirely.
Speaking of which, in pop culture terms, Fight Night at the Joe is still a shorthand for full-throttle sports drama. And Lemieux shows up in places you might not expect. Pros vs. Joes in 2007, where former pros face off against amateurs on TV, and Battle of the Blades in 2009, a figure skating show pairing hockey players with pro ice dancers. He even recorded a duet of Hallelujah for a routine. That's a twist.
It makes me want a documentary series just on infamous sports rivalries, not just the fists and penalties, but the psychology, the grudges, the redemption arcs, the unexpected friendships afterward. Lemieux and McCarty on the same charitable stage is the kind of third act that makes for a great final episode.
All right, let's roll on with a what if. Suppose the NHL had given Lemieux a season-long suspension for the Draper hit. I could see the rivalry de-escalating. Colorado would lose a playoff mode scorer and agitator, which might ripple their cup odds in 1996 and beyond. Maybe Detroit's path changes too, with less fuel on the fire.
Here's where it gets really interesting. A season-long ban, back then, would set a massive precedent. It could have accelerated the league's shift toward harsher penalties on dangerous hits by a decade. Players might recalibrate what's acceptable, and teams might rethink how they use physical edge as a strategy.
But hockey ecosystems adapt. If Lemieux is out, maybe Colorado leans more on depth scoring, or someone else becomes the heel. Sometimes the role gets refilled by the next guy who skates the line. Still, losing his 1996 presence might chip away at those razor-thin margins in playoff series.
I'd also wonder about fan memory. Without that exact escalation point, do we remember Avalanche Red Wings with quite the same intensity? Maybe, but maybe it's a different set of flashpoints. The story still gets told, just with a different villain, or maybe with less heat and more chess.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. Keep questioning and stay curious.
And remember, every story has more than one side. Until next time.